Isn't that part of the dilemma now? That people knew that Negroes were being denied what was guaranteed to them by the Constitution, by the fact that they were citizens of this country. Then when they were given those rights, do you feel the white community said, well, we've given them all that we have, now it's up to them?
Well, I think the dilemma is much deeper, and I think one during this period of transition has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation.
Welcome to This is America. I'm Alex Haynes.
I'm Tiffanie Lanelle.
And Tiffanie Lanelle. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. I could be churchy and say it's good to be seen and not viewed, but that's a different show.
It's a show I won't be going to or attending. On that note, welcome back. And it's been a while since we've been able to connect. But one of the most important things about this show it's for you to have some insight on what's happening in this America, and in America well, you're in America, likely, right? And for those of you listening or stumbling up on us that are not in America, this is actually the America you should learn about, right? Because America's really good at
propaganda.
I was going to say rewriting history.
Propaganda.
Start light today. But see, and propaganda is such a loaded word because it comes in so many forms and so many factions, and we have so many variations and versions of propaganda in America. But we're here to highlight those things for you. So,
propaganda. I don't have another word, and I'm not starting out light.
But when you say propaganda, no, that is a light word. The non-light word is whitewashing, okay? Because that's what America does. Whitewash the hell out of it. Hell yes. Not, though. That's still light. See, I'm still light. I'm feeling light today.
Okay, well, bless the Lord. I am not. I think it was good that we started off with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because, of course, it is April 4th. It is 58 years since his assassination at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. And I think that we take a lot of his speeches and things in the earlier parts of his life, and the speech that he gave.
America.
Don't.
America.
I'm in America.
Gotcha.
America does. We don't, but America does. We take a lot of his earlier speeches and sermons and Letter from Birmingham and things like that. And even throughout the news today and this morning, it was a lot of the speech that he gave the night before he was assassinated. But we chose this specific clip because this was, I believe, 11 months before he was assassinated. And he speaks very poignantly about things that are still relevant today. About things about broad racism in the country and whitewashing, for lack of a better way to say it. And he talks about the vacillation in that particular clip. I still think there's a lot of vacillation happening today with white, black, brown, with different people when it comes to racial conversations and dialogue in this nation.
And you say vacillation, are you meaning like making it easier to go down? Like,
no,
are you making MLK nicer to digest, or when I put Vaseline on,
flaky.
it's soothing. It's soothing.
Not Vaseline. I'm talking vacillation as in back and forth. You don't know which way to go. Not necessarily the cognitive dissonance per se, but really it's a disconnect between what do I want to do? What do I think I should do? What's everybody else doing? And what am I supposed to do? And I think we see that a lot.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think we see that a lot in American politics, American society, and social concepts and dialogue. I think that people go with the wind sometimes, and sometimes they go with what their friends are doing. They go with what the news is telling them, depending on which news they're listening to. So I think we still see that a lot. And of course, we still see a lot of racism today. And I know we'll get into some of that conversation, but we don't live in a post-racial society.
I tend to agree with you that we have people that see what they want to see or present what they want to present. I do not think that we are too far from the America that the formers wanted this America to be. Now, the problem with the America that we have is that the America by design, right? And they say, well, we as Americans never planned for this. You did. You planned for in your Constitution. You made people that look like me 3/5 humans. So you literally planned to use the 3/5 humans for as long as you could, right? So you never changed the verbiage, or you never changed that. You just started to add things or amend things, but the meaning remains in what was written by who it was written by. And they did what they did, not like this is, of course, this is not the America they ever imagined. I'm sitting here talking to you freely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately.
And this was not supposed to happen.
No, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be telling you my thoughts or my views or why I think this is happening. I'm not supposed to be able to give you the facts. I'm supposed to be able to regurgitate what I'm told and respond to you when I'm spoken to. That's literally the actual design. So I think using MLK as a reference point when we celebrate his birthday, when we have the holiday that's been a holiday of service for many of us, but a holiday that was created in his name. And then we use the things that make people feel good, right? We say the things that he had a dream for all of us to live together and be together in harmony. Not without restitution, not without the responsibility of the people, the formers, and the people that are representing the formers. Like, if you're an elected representative, what do you think that is? That's not somebody electing you to go collect a check. It's not someone electing you to go shout your opinions from the rooftops. It's not for someone, or people aren't electing you to go hurt them. Like, that's literally not what people think they are doing. But when you kind of cosplay who you are to everybody, right? And both sides, this is not a size argument. This is an America argument. America cosplays and masquerades her greatness to the masses. America sits on her pedestal and tells people, this America literally has built itself on fear tactics and scaring the hell out of the world, barking back at them when they try to just speak up for themselves. But it's just a rinse and repeat of what they did to people on this land here.
On this land.
As we prepare to go into another election season and we start to think about where we are and how we got here and what we are supposed to do, America wants you to think about what she has or hasn't done for you, and then America wants you to blame someone, because that is what America does, right? There's no ownership for what we got here because of America. We are where we are not because people are crossing the border. America is where she is because America has created a system that puts the working people lower than everyone else, while telling working people that you're equal. We're going to treat you equal. We're giving you equal opportunity. But at the same time, we are taking the barriers we put in place to keep things equal. We're taking those away. We're going to pull down the things that have been put in place because we know we formed this nation as an unequal place. So we had to fix that at some point. But now people are they feel like things have been fixed way too much. Like it's not enough.
Women got too many rights. You blacks got too many rights. You immigrants got too many rights. Everybody's got too many rights except the white people, and particularly the white man. And so, yes, and we've talked about this a plethora of times where we've talked about going backwards. We're just not going in the right direction.
One reason I don't want to talk is because I have to open my mouth to talk about white people, and I don't want to do that. Like I'm so tired of. I've said what I'm going to say about. You can literally look at 15 years. You can find an audio clip of me 15 years ago, and I'm saying the same damn thing I'm about to say for this entire season, because it's the same thing. I've been saying this since they put me behind the mic,
and that's been a very long time ago.
So, wanting to take a break, I feel like anyone that does this, if you have to speak on behalf of your people, I don't care if you're a pastor or a kindergarten teacher, and you've got to advocate for that little black boy that everyone thinks is a problem child because they just don't see him.
Right.
You deserve a break. You deserve to be tired. You don't deserve to have to talk about this and force and beg people to go and do something that's going to protect them because they're blinded by a damn check that they got from an ass clown. Like, get the hell out of here. Like, I'm not doing it.
And yet here we are.
Willingly.
And yet here we are talking about how all of the different things. And I know you and I had this conversation about, folks liking Trump because I got a stimulus check. That didn't have anything to do with Trump. His name was on the check. That had absolutely nothing to do with that clown.
The truth is, if you needed Trump to come save you because something was happening, he would let your black ass burn. That's what he would do. That has nothing to do with, well, he thinks you're from a shithole country, and that's besides the point. He literally stood on a pedestal this week to talk about animals. He called immigrants from other countries, people that come here, that build his buildings, work for free, most likely for this man, because they saw him on TV and they thought that they can get an opportunity from a rich man. Like, I don't think anybody that's ever worked with Donald Trump did it willingly, like without knowing that maybe there's some benefit here, not realizing that he turns on literally anyone and everyone. But here we are. Here we are, expected to just look at this like it's normal. Like, where we are not going to be okay is if we let the talking heads, the people that have been sitting on these news networks, knowing that they are being irresponsible, as people that hold the responsibility of telling the truth.
Truth is, they're in the eye of the beholder.
Doctors take a Hippocratic oath, right? Doctors take an oath to literally, despite what the law says, which is another American problem, because the law does not protect Americans. And it's blatant, right, with what we're fighting with women's health care and abortion rights, but the FDA will tell you that Americans aren't protected by the law. Like, what we're able to eat, what's permitted to be in our food, like what these people can serve us. That's issue number one. That's issue A.
That's a whole other conversation.
It is.
They just banned asbestos, and that's a whole other conversation. But you mentioned
We've got
something.
lead pipes in 75% of this country that are killing kids every day.
That's another conversation. Like we said, we are going
Every
to
day.
try and hit the foundation. We're going to do some grounding, and we're going to hit a couple of topics today. We could be here all day talking about all of the things that are This Is America.
You can be here all day. I'm not going to be here all day. I'm telling you, I'm not doing that. I ain't doing that.
But right now, we're going to talk a little bit about Nebraska. Oh, Nebraska. So, if you have not heard, Trump and his allies are trying to force, push, influence, whatever you want to call it, the governor and the legislature in Nebraska to change the way that they do their electoral college. So right now, they are one of two states, Nebraska and Maine, that does a proportional representation, which means whoever wins in their regions, districts, depending on the state, then that's who gets the electoral count, essentially. And so Trump and his allies are trying to force Nebraska to put language into a bill, really sneak language into a bill so that it becomes a winner-take-all system. Now, this may sound like not a big deal. It's one state, whatever. But Obama and Biden both took home the necessary votes from Nebraska and the necessary count from the Electoral College that they needed in order to win the 270, the count to 270 that's needed. So here's a little bit of a clip from some of the senators in Nebraska legislature, and we'll talk about their structure after this clip.
With no vote scheduled on the bill itself, Senator Julie Slama added it as an amendment to a military government and veteran affairs bill. She called out her fellow registered Republicans, saying they should vote for winner take all.
It would appear that once again, Republicans can talk a big talk, but can't walk the walk when it comes to actually getting things done.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh had hoped to postpone the proposal indefinitely.
You're not trustworthy. I went into the lounge to talk to a couple of you, and you told me you were voting a different way than you told Senator Wayne.
Now, the Nebraska legislature is unique in this country that it is the only one that has a unicameral legislature, which means it's just one chamber. So all the other states have two chambers, Senate, House of Representatives. Nebraska has one chamber, and it's been that way since, I believe, the 1930s, 1937, I believe. So they're all called senators, which is why when you see their name, it doesn't have a D or an R next to them to note their party, even though they are registered to one party or another. So Rep. Kavanaugh actually had me cracking up because right before the clip that we just played, she actually says, I just want to throw up. I want to throw up. I want to go to bed, but I can't because you people are not trustworthy. You're just not trustworthy. And she's saying that because the woman who put this bill forward, they've been trying to do this for, it sounds like, around the last 2 years. But now they're down to the bottom line. Their session ends on April 18th. They have a 60-day legislative session in even-numbered years, 90 days in odd number years, but it's 2024. So they have 60 days this legislative session. And she tried to add the language for a winner-takes-all electoral college system into a military and veterans bill. It failed 36-8. But this is the hot news of the day, because if it passes, then Nebraska could be a problem for Biden. Alex, what do you think?
Well, I think that this is America, right? So
it was your face first.
Because I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, and one of the major issues that Donald Trump has tried to push to his followers, to Americans, to the news branded TV entertainment outlets that he chooses to visit, is that the big lie, right? People have written books. Journalists have gotten rich as hell off of writing books about what Donald Trump did and what he was doing for this election, and the fear, the lies that he was stoking about that. And he starts it at the beginning, right? He's already
Right.
said that he's saying, well, we're going to walk away as winners no matter what. However, if I don't win, then it was rigged. Okay, so
And there will be hell to pay.
here's the thing. I played sports growing up, right? And I think, Americans can relate to this. And I know that Americans can relate to this. If you didn't play, you win, right? You went, I don't know, to a T-ball game, to somebody's football game. And here's the thing. I had rivals. I lived in a very American town I had rivals, right? Rivals. If we went into every rival game and said, if I walk away and Norcross wins, it was rigged.
Yeah.
And that's just a simple point. That's a simple point because some of you people live in these areas, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, whatever it is. You have these teams that you hate. They are the antithesis of, and it's weird because you're playing these people. These are kids, and you hate these people. It's very weird that we thrive on hatred like that. But the same thing has happened with our political parties, right? So it's like you've been taught they hate these Republicans, and the thing is, if you talk to people, they'll tell you what the hate is when they arrived at hate. Like they didn't just wake up and say I hate Republicans. Now Republicans may do that. I don't know for sure because I don't really know many of them. They may make because everything they just wake up and say, oh, this is the left, and that the left is godless. Like so the entire left of the country,
absolutely,
which is a designation that has been thrust upon them because most of this country is probably independent. Polling will tell us that. And I'm not going to be someone that cites polls, but that's just the fact. Most people think independently. But right. You arrive at a place that you're like, if these are these people, if these people stand for this, then I hate that. Right? So you can figure out that thing. Now, they played it on so many things that, so many things. But when we come to situations like this, right, the big lie, well, it's rigged. It's rigged. There's no party in America that does better at rigging things. And for a party to go and upend, first of all, the Electoral College, while it's constitutional, is probably the antithesis to democracy, right? Because it's the same thing about minorities ruling the masses. And I'm going to say this last thing about Nebraska, because I know we can't spend all day here, but I've traversed through the country a couple of times. I've been on more road trips than I want to go on anymore. But every time I'm in a part of the country that I'm not familiar with, I'm going to use a northern part of the country since I've lived in the Northeast for quite some time at this point. And there's an area in this place that these people like to vacation. But I can say the same thing as a person that grew up in the South and also went to college in the deep South, like the deep, dark South that people are afraid of. And I totally get why you wouldn't want to be in some of these areas at night or at all. I understand that. I understand. So when I drive through these areas, I was driving through this area of Pennsylvania, and the thought came to me instantly. Why in the hell would these people be voting on the same things I'm voting on? Okay, local elections, I get it. We say that's where local politics is supposed to matter. But if your neighbor is at minimum a 5-minute or 5-mile drive away, what are you making laws for people that live in compact boxes in New York City for? Why do you give a damn what's happening? Why do you feel like you are being invaded? There's nobody coming out there. We don't even know where that is. Some of there are places in this nation that still don't have addresses. And I'm okay if you want to live in a place that doesn't have an address. If you live on Route 7 Lee Road, no shade to that part of Alabama, because I know there's about 100 of people that live on Lee Road. There's no actual address. It's just Lee Road. What do you need to? Okay, so you don't need to vote for the things I vote on. That's okay, but you can.
But
Why? Why?
They need to vote on
Why
that,
are you
Alex.
voting? But why are you voting for the demise of people that you've never even? It's all based on fear. It's all based on stories that you hear on your fake ass news networks. This is not a Newsmax is not a real news network. It's a news network that saw that a lot of people were watching Fox News, which also has said in court filings that they are not a news network either. These people sit there and make up stories and talk about people all day long. We share it. We share the shit. We share that shit. Why are we sharing this? Why are we sharing it? There's no reason for us to be doing that. Nebraska, we come back. But my point about all of this, because it's all ties into it. As I was driving through rural, very rural Pennsylvania, it got dark. Then it got darker. Then then you know what I'm talking about. There's these towns that you walk through or you drive through, you end up there and you're like, wow.
I don't know that should I be here?
Damn, there's not even a stoplight. Okay, everything is wood. This looks like them old westerns, but this is not west. We are east. I don't know what's going on here, but then I start thinking about voting because I'm who I am. For what purpose is this person casting a vote against us for? For what? For what?
Because that's the beauty of democracy in America.
You could have 50, 11 guns, and no one's coming. No, you're safe. You are. You are safe. You are. So
what's the solution?
These people. I mean, these people have to. Well, I think here's a proposed solution, and it's not going to be. It's not going to sound like it came out of my mouth.
Oh Lord.
Which, I mean, that could be a no. It may be a no, Lord, because it's like I don't want to do that. But I think the real thing is, because it's so easy to stoke fear, because people are only influenced by mostly what they watch and what they hear. And they're flooded with nonsense, lies, disinformation, misinformation, and bullshit. You're flooded with it on your supposed news networks. You're flooded with it on your phone. If you lack education, and I'm not even talking about formal education. I'm talking about Robert Kelly education. Like if you can't read and you just like pictures and videos, then you are just kind of, did you see that? Did you see that? You're willing to share it. You don't even know. And so I think the solution is more physical than we want to be okay with. The solution is community, right? We don't even want to do community with our own. And that's a whole, I know. I'm treading down territory nobody wants me to go. But once you've experienced people, and I say this often, and Christians, Black Christians, I gotta delineate in this culture because you never know who you're talking to. Everybody is a Christian. Donald Trump said he's saving there's a clip I saw last night. He said he's going to save the union for the Christians. Now,
somebody also just said to us that he wants to change Election Day to Christian Visibility Day.
No, he said, well, he did. I think he said on November 5th, when he wins, that's going to be Christian Visibility Day. Because the Christians have shown up for Donald J. Trump. And I'm sure he read that in 2 Corinthians. And that's also fine. I'm also fine with that. Because what the solution is community. And so those people who I was riding by their dark, probably deer-ridden walled houses, Those are the people that need to be in community with them so that I can see them as people. Because what happens is when you're demonized over and over and over again, that's how somebody can pull in your driveway and you can open up the door and just shoot. Because you've been able to, you believe that people are so after you and you've been fed that. The people feeding it to you don't want to take any responsibility. In fact, they've already planned their vacations. They'll be vacationing in the Hamptons this summer. You'll be wondering where your favorite Fox News host is, and she's out getting a Mai Tai somewhere in New York. You know, the liberal left. They're here enjoying herself on a rooftop. But
but I agree with you. I think that community is the answer for a lot of things. I think that we do have a culture that will dehumanize before it humanizes. And I was just having this conversation with someone about many of our entry points, particularly for Black people. And then if you add another layer of identity onto that, Black and gay, Black and female, Black and whatever, Black and Christian, whatever it is, we have a lot of othering in our society and in our communities. And when we hear the stories, I was watching something yesterday and there was a quote in it that said, I'm gonna have to remember what I was watching, but I was watching a Instagram video from Tia Mowry this morning, and she was talking about how she's been sharing her journey. She's good. She actually was talking about how she's been sharing her journey through divorce and what it has felt like. And one of the things she said was, there is power in our stories. Women regain our power when we share our stories. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because I wholeheartedly believe in the power of storytelling. I wholeheartedly believe in, when I'm doing organizing in the state of Georgia or fundraising or whatever the case may be, when you bring in the stories of community. When I talk about the grandmother that I met in rural Georgia who didn't have a printer, but you have to print out your absentee ballot in the state now because it requires a wet signature. Those are the stories that make a difference in policy conversations, in legislative conversations, in research conversations, in funding conversations. It makes a difference when you can bring stories to the forefront. So I agree. I absolutely think that community is the way to go. Now, I also think that when you don't have it, it can backfire, like what happened in Seattle. So I'm going to move into that because it's a very frustrating, egregious story that is happening in Seattle that when you sent it to me, I think I just went to bed, because it's just so infuriating that as a community, quote unquote, you would rather close a gifted program than to just do the work of being inclusive and finding ways to be more inclusive of Black and brown students and students of color into this program. So let me summarize what's happening. Seattle Public Schools had a community meeting, and in this situation, I'm using the term loosely. Seattle has decided to, after convening with parents and hearing parents' concerns in Seattle Public Schools, they had a gifted and talented program. Now, the gifted and talented program was said to have had too many white and Asian students. So then Black parents went to a school board meeting, and they essentially wanted to see how to have more inclusivity of including Black students and students of color into the gifted and talented program. I think it was a very small percentage, 3.4% were Black, while 52% were white, 16% were Asian in this highly capable cohort. The school board vice president, Chandra Hampson, gaslit them. I don't know another way to say it. She gaslit these parents and basically said that that's just another way to tokenize Black and brown and of color students in the district. And so let me finish giving the story before I go on.
So, yeah, because I think her goal was to focus on the fact that there was a lack of equity. And so
I think that was the goal of the parents.
Well, it was the goal of the parents, and then her response. Because her response was, this is the most equitable decision. We will just teach a gifted curriculum to everyone.
Right. But the problem is now they're shifting to a highly capable, another highly capable and gifted structure, like you mentioned, called the highly capable neighborhood school model. The problem with that is now teachers have to come up with an individualized plan for all of the students. So you're talking about teachers who we all know are vastly underpaid, don't have the necessary help, tools, or resources. Who's going to add that capacity that they need in order to come up with an individualized plan for each student? I mean, you already talk about teachers who have students, and not just in Seattle, but broadly across the education spectrum. You have students who are gifted and who are gifted and talented. And then, you have students who have IEPs, who are deemed to have different abilities or different learning models that they need in order to be successful in school. So you already have teachers dealing with different sides of the spectrum in how they deliver education and the resources and everything that they have. Now we're talking about overburdening teachers even more, because now they have to come up with an individualized plan for every student in their class, in all of their classes.
I definitely think that it seems like it was very short-sighted.
Right.
I think where my and I don't even know that this is me pushing back or playing devil's advocate. I just think it is the other side of the coin. Is we just had a conversation about how passionate we are in this country about othering others. And part of her argument was this others these kids that are left out of it. So, but does it other the gifted kids?
I mean, I think it depends on how the program is operating.
I mean, it's a difficult conversation, right? It is. It's a difficult decision. If you're a parent in Seattle public schools and you have a certain desire for your kids to get the enrichment that public education should be able to offer them based on how they're presented, then you have an issue with this, right?
Right.
The percentages also are extremely low of the number of Black students in this system. So in the same way that we try to offer equity, you're never going to achieve that when you are pulling down systems that are built to, because I don't think there's a one swath answer to any of these questions. But when you pull down the structure that has been created, not to say that it's perfect at the beginning, these DEI programs, I will stand with the people that call them problematic, but they weren't problematic because they had problematic intentions. They were problematic at the beginning because everything's a mess at the beginning. You need time to perfect a program. I don't care how much knowledge or book smarts or scholars you put into perfecting this program. Humans are humans. So until you're able to, this goes back to community. It's different for every community. So
right. So I think that I agree with what you said, in that I think this particular decision was very short-sighted. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know that there was a right or wrong answer that was presented during the school board meeting, because I think that it really needed to be somewhere met in the middle. And I just think that there wasn't enough room left for community conversation between the parents and the school board and the teachers. It doesn't seem like there were enough voices that were given space to try and come up with another solution. It was just, well, we'll just shut the whole thing down. Well, I don't think that that's the answer. But let's look at the data. Like you said, it's a smaller number of Black students in the district anyway. So what does it mean to be more inclusive in this community? What does that look like? What does it look like to maybe not only have 3.4% of Black students in this gifted and talented program when we have 52% white? What's the criteria? And surely it's not that there just are no more Black students in this community who are eligible for this gifted and talented program. So I think I'm assuming that's where the parents came from. And I just wish more space was given for community conversation and dialogue to come up with a community resolution and not just, we'll just shut the whole thing down.
Well, and honestly, like I said, I agree. But I think part of the problem here is that these parents came to a school board meeting in January 2020. Now,
right.
This is pre-George Floyd. This is pre the activism movement, the pre everybody is Black and y'all are kneeling at the feet of Black people because you think that's what we asked for. This is before all of that. This happened before all of that. So then she's presented with the fact that there's 52% white people. And that alone sounds frightening. 52%, and for us it was 90%. So, but 50%, right. 52% white people. And you're like, I am trying to effectively create a place that is enriching and equitable for all of these students. Do I shut it down or fight the 52% of white people that are going to fight me? Do I shut it down and say, we need to come up with a way to ensure that we are reaching our gifted kids? And I'm sorry, teachers, to put this on. I think where I really have the issue is that the responsibility, so it seems, falls only on the teacher. Like, where is the collective responsibility for individual programs to be created? Like, where is the additional teaching staff that you need? Where is the additional funding that should be going that way? I do understand what 52% of angry white people would seem like showing up somewhere on a January day.
Well, and they also have a $104 million budget deficit. So, and that gets into the whole conversation in general about education, funding for education across different states and at the federal level.
Well, this is why the school choice conversation happens.
We can't even get into that during this because that's, again, a whole other conversation.
It all stems from this place. But
yeah. And I do think that we do need to have the conversation about school choice and what that looks like, and charter schools versus public schools and the funding and all of that. We could honestly do a whole show on that. I went to a state budget workshop, event, whatever, and we did an exercise where we kind of took on these different roles as if we were aligning the state budget to different resources. And it was pretty difficult because we were given, slips of paper or whatever, to figure out what our personal priorities were. And then we kind of had to negotiate and work towards the priorities that we were given on the slips of paper. And I found it to be an interesting exercise because we found ourselves in each of our groups having to negotiate, having to say, well, I need money for education. And so if you give me this, then, whatever. And I just think that unfortunately, education and healthcare, which really go hand in hand, take the brunt of the cuts when it comes to state budgets. They're like, why are they operating at $104 million budget deficit? What is happening? Because it's not that the teachers are being paid what they are worth or what they should be paid. And so I just think, again, this is a larger conversation.
And you asked the question why, and you've got over a dozen governors that sent funding for education back to the federal government. That didn't happen in Washington, but
I'm aware. And
this is
I'm
America.
leave it at that for now.
This is America.
This is America. And speaking of America, I'm going to tell you what I'm very, very, very sick of. I'm very, very sick of hearing about Biden's outrage about people dying in Gaza. And so now we have to talk about Israel. So if you missed it, I don't know how, but in case you missed it, there was a bombing of a vehicle that was delivering aid and food to people in Gaza. It was bombed by the IDF. And here is Chef Andres, Jose Andres, talking a bit about the loss of life that occurred.
We didn't have all the information, obviously, in the first minutes and hours, but very clear. The situation began being very obvious when we began seeing images of these bodies and these passports in the hospital that confirm these were our people. At the end is what we know, what everybody knows, that 7 team members between the specialty security people we have, 3 British individuals and 3 international crew plus 1 Palestinian, 7 people dead. But there are 7 on top of a list of more than another 190 humanitarian workers that they've been killed over the last 6 months. Humanitarians and civilians should never be paying the consequences of war. This is a basic principle of humanity. At the time, this looks like it's not a war against terrorism anymore. Seems this is a war against humanity itself. You cannot be destroying every building. You cannot be destroying every hospital, every school. You cannot be targeting humanitarian. You cannot be targeting children. You cannot be fighting the basis of what humanity should be standing for.
It is incredibly difficult to watch his full interview because as he's talking about the aid workers, and he said in that video, that's 7 in addition to the 190 that we know about that have already died trying to deliver food and aid and resources to the Palestinian people during what is not the war on Hamas. It hasn't been a war on Hamas for a very long time. It has been the path to a genocide for a very long time. And listening to Morning Joe this morning, and a lot of what their talking points are frustrate me when it comes to the war in Israel and Gaza. But one thing that he did say again, and he has said it multiple times, and other news outlets say it on occasion, but not as much, is they knew about October 7th. And yet still the messaging is, well, October 7th happened and now we have to respond because Hamas did XYZ. Y'all knew that Hamas, you had their plans. And I'm not excusing anything that Hamas has done at all. What I am saying is to say that with the precision weaponry that they have, with the AI technology that they're using they said they're not exactly using it to develop a kill list, but they are using it for certain parts of intelligence in their process in determining where they send certain bombs and everything else. So with that technology, with the precision technology that they're using, with the weaponry, with the intelligence that they're getting, they're supposed to be one of the best intelligence forces in the world. You're telling me after working with Chef Andres and the World Central Kitchen team to coordinate the efforts in this very, very dangerous area, you still bomb the vehicle and call it a mistake and say, well, we'll look into it after the war. Are you kidding me? Now, my problem with America, because this is America, is y'all keep doubling down on, well, there's no evidence that this was an intentional bombing on the IDF's part. Are you kidding me? Open your eyes. Like, I really need the Biden administration to open their eyes. I need Biden to open his eyes, because at this point, and I said this on my Instagram stories yesterday, and I'm going to keep saying it at this point, the US is complicit in this genocide. And not only are we complicit, it might be time that we also be charged and tried for international humanitarian crimes. We are literally giving them the weapons to kill tens of thousands of innocent people in the search of Hamas. That's allegedly under tunnels that we can't seem to find. That's allegedly using the civilians as shields. But you have precision weaponry and you're coordinating, you're getting locations to hospitals and places where the innocent civilian lives are hiding for their lives, are fleeing for their lives. You're putting them into a concentrated area, and now all Biden has to say is, well, if he attacks Rafah, then we'll have to do something about it. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding? You've got to be shitting me at this point. It is a genocide. They are selling plots of land, literally mowing over the bodies of Palestinian people. It is a genocide. I do not understand at what point, what's it going to take, how many deaths it's going to take, how many lives have to be lost for aid workers, for Palestinian people, for the teams that are trying to be in the region and report on the news. How many lives do we have to lose? How much famine has to occur? How many resources do the hospitals have to lose? How many churches have to be bombed? How many hospitals have to be bombed? And you want to wait until he bombs and attacks the most concentrated area in the region because they pushed them all into Rafah? And then you may do something about it? I don't want to hear about Biden's outrage anymore, because at this point, it's empty words. I don't want to hear about his outrage anymore, because on the flip side of his outrage, he then talks about sending them another, $18 billion in weapons and tools and resources and funding. I don't want to hear about your outrage. I want to hear about what you're going to do and how you're going to add conditions onto what you keep sending over to Israel. Because at this point, Bibi is looking at you saying, kiss my ass. I'm going to keep killing them. Plenty of people in his administration have admitted that they don't actually care about the hostages, which is now why Israeli citizens are calling for early elections. Why people in his own cabinet are calling for early elections. They have admitted they don't care about those hostages, Palestinian or Israeli. They do not give a damn. The goal is genocide. The goal is an ethnic cleansing. The goal is beachfront properties. I'm not making that up. I'm not exaggerating. Their literal goal is beachfront properties for Israeli citizens. So I don't want to hear about your outrage.
I could not agree with you more, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth. And we've had this conversation. We've been having this conversation since October 8th. Literally, you and I have had this conversation over and over and over again. What I heard, though, I heard a couple of things that I have not heard this way. I hear the hurt. I hear not just frustration. I hear the anger and I hear the pain. But what I heard dually at the same time that I don't think I've heard before. I don't know why I needed to be sitting here to hear that. I had to go and get my little tablet, because all I could hear in my head, and I say this earnestly. I say this earnestly as you were going on. Like you said, open your eyes. You said they are literally doing this, and the goal is beachfront properties. And every time you paused, I got a picture, and then audibly I heard in my head, the great Maya Angelou, as she said, when someone. But when people show you who they are, believe them.
Literally.
Believe them. Why would you think that billionaires in America would not be supporting a state that was to eliminate a bunch of brown people for beachfront properties? Why would you not believe that?
Exactly.
Why would you believe? Why would you believe that?
Exactly.
That this nation has your best interest at heart. And you can give me some valid reasons that you believe it, and I would listen to your answers. I'm not going to say that I agree with your answers, but if you've told yourself that to make it to the next day, then who the hell am I to tell you not to believe that? I can't say that you can believe what you're seeing. You can believe what you're watching. You can believe. And again, there are detractors. There are definitely people that are intentionally trying to destroy and dismantle not just us, but the way that we think, the way that we communicate. This country, everything is about race. So our adversaries know that. So everything that's divisive that we see, sometimes, yeah, it is just us being us. But if there's an attack on us, why would the attack not be racist? Why would it not be intentionally class? I say this way, and I get the class argument. We can talk about class. We talked about class earlier before the show, but also, it doesn't matter how much money is in my pocket. In this country, I'm still a nigga. Nigger, hard ER. My bank account, my bankroll could be popping, and I can have an entire community that's standing with me and supporting me, and like, I love him, but you know what? They are still calling me. Still. So we can talk class. You want to pretend that I vacation in Martha's Vineyard and class and races. I'm above that. I'm above those conversations. I fraternize with people that race is not really on our radar. It's something that we keep bringing up. Okay.
That reminds me of two things. One, it reminds me of the TikTok video where the guy says, I keep seeing all of these videos about going to different countries and immigrating out of the US and all of that. But the question is, do they like niggas? And like the first time I saw that video, I was like, no, that's real. That's because there are countries that you go into and you're like, I won't be back there. You stared at my brown skin a little bit too hard. I'm okay on that.
This country.
Well, we talk all the time. I'm safe in I can't even say full states. Because I'm not safe in this whole state. I need my perimeter. Where's my?
It is literally there's a map, which is why what's his name thinks we should all move there. That's his justification, but no.
Well, and like I told somebody else when I was describing kind of the electoral work that happens in this state, I said, a lot of y'all see things on the news, but if you've never lived here, you're just seeing what you see on the news. There's Atlanta and then there's Georgia, and that's two totally different entities. And Atlanta is this.
Because I'm one of y'all, but I can also say to y'all, no, Atlanta is Georgia. It is. Now
it is Georgia. But I'm talking about electoral wise. There's Atlanta and then there's Georgia. And a good portion of Georgia, not all of it, but a good portion of Georgia is rural when you are looking at it from an electoral point of view. And so I just, when we talk about the second thing that what you just said reminded me of was this color blindness conversation and how this I don't see color. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's just
no
not.
Sees you.
It's just not. I can't even find the word that I'm looking for. It's just not. It's not a realistic thing. Color blindness does not create a post-racial society. It does not take away from the caste system that exists. It does not take away from the racial discrimination that exists. It does not take away from the affirmative action that was needed that now that that's been stripped down, has created a whole situation at the college level for entry exams and entry essays and everything else. And now I've seen article after article where they're like hiring consultants to get into colleges. And again, the education piece is a whole other conversation, but color blindness does not take away from the racial issues that we have still in existence, of what Martin Luther King was talking about, what Howard Thurman has talked about, what Malcolm X has talked about, hell, what Marcus Garvey talked about. There are still issues that are ingrained, embedded, dug into the soil of this country. And I just find it so interesting that a country of immigrants hates immigrants the way that we do. I just find it so interesting that a country that's supposed to be the land of the free, a country that is a part of NATO, which is supposed to be for the freedom of the freedom and the liberation and the protection of happy birthday NATO, of the people. I don't understand how Biden and the administration and the people who are just blatantly supporting Israel, and I don't have a problem with people who support Israel. I have a problem with people who negate the lives of the Palestinian people who are suffering under the current Israel regime. I have a problem with people like Jim Jordan out of Ohio, who issued a warning to parents on illegal aliens hiding in schools. Ohio, my people, because I was born there. So Ohio, I really want y'all to vote him out. I really want y'all to get him out. Georgia, I really want y'all to get Marjorie Taylor Greene out. Now, you probably won't, because for all of the gerrymandering and redistricting that occurred, their districts pretty much remain unchanged. But please, Alex, you mentioned earlier that Leslie Jones was saying about Trump, please just don't do this. Just don't do this to us. And I think I mentioned before in another show, or maybe it was on Conversation, I can't keep up, when I went overseas to the UN talks, all that my other best friend and I heard was, please don't let him in office again. Every time the US has an election, we got to hold our breath. Please, please, please do not let Trump back in office again. For a country that is supposed to have amazing, and we've done a lot of good work. There have been a lot of good Secretary of States and a lot of administrations that have done wonders for our international relations. Trump was not one of them. He pulled us out of the Paris Agreement. He pulled us out of NATO, or he threatened to pull us out of NATO. He was terrible for our international relations. But the war in Israel and Gaza, is by far one of the worst foreign policy decisions and war decisions that the Biden administration and that this country has made in a very, very, very long time. And at this point, the administration has got to grow a pair and tell BB, you cannot keep indiscriminately bombing people and then just saying, oh, it was an accident. No, it wasn't. You did not kill these 7 people that you coordinated a delivery with accidentally. You just killed an Iranian militant leader with precision. Those same tools accidentally killed the World Central Kitchen team that you coordinated.
Here's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like we can get outraged about, like, their eyes are open. So
I think that's what makes it worse.
Yeah, it doesn't make me outraged. It makes me think like I'm not thinking. I don't know how to think. I need to think around them.
Right.
You have to think around them. You have to think through them. Like the lip service is really because they're going to give you the lip service back. That's what they're programmed to do. So you're going to sit there and wait for the lip service because that's the system. Like I don't know. I'm feeling some type of way as I think through this more. I'm thinking through like if there was a mistake, it would have been pinpointed by now.
Yeah, but there wasn't.
If
Because the
the
goal
actions
is
of the United
beachfront
States,
properties.
if the actions of the United States were a joke, then they would have been addressed. So take it for face value. Take it for what it is. This is actually happening. This is America. This is your life now. This is what it is.
All I'm saying is the goal is beachfront properties. And I just...
But here's my problem. You have some people that are fine with that. You probably have more people than we know of, that we can fathom or even think about, that are totally fine with that.
Right.
So the problem isn't beachfront problem. I like that. That is a problem. The goal is the problem, but who are the people that care? Where are you? Who are you?
Because we can't be the minority. We shouldn't be the minority.
Well, we are. We definitely are. I see that just hit you live, but
because it's just so.
Yeah.
And you and I have been talking about this since October 8th, and really we've been talking about it before because, again, this didn't start on October 7th. This isn't the first war in the region. This isn't the first time that this has occurred. And so you and I have been having this conversation for years, but we've really been having this conversation since October 7th. And I will say that in the beginning, I was almost disappointed in some of my circles because I was like, so you just not going to say nothing? You just going to leave me on red? This isn't a difficult position to take. Stop killing people. I don't understand.
I was saying the same thing in 2020, and it is very hard for people to understand. So it's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard. It's sad. It's hard, but this is America.
This is America, and I don't have it for any of that anymore.
Honestly, that's that.
And that's that on that.
We'll be here to do America again.
Because America's going to keep
Here she is. I want to wrap with this because I think that part of what gets lost in translation sometimes is that everyone is talking at each other. We don't talk to each other as much, but also sometimes we don't know who we're talking to. I said to you before the show, part of the reason that I feel more so compelled, and I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks. I had a conversation with my brother last week that reminded me that sometimes you may not know it in the moment because sometimes it's not always appropriate for you to speak. Sometimes that moment isn't presenting itself. It hasn't presented itself.
Right.
When it's time to speak, that moment will happen. And then when that moment happens and you don't, that is what makes your silence complicit.
Absolutely.
Because the moment has now happened, right? In the moment, sometimes you don't know what's happened. And that's my thing. I've had a lot of realizations of things that have happened that I'm like, should I have said something then? No. But is the time now? Maybe so. Who's going to listen to my little black ass? Who knows? You never know. Like I said before we got started today, because it just is where we are, I can analyze this and like, well, you don't know how these people really think. I do know how these people think. I was taught by white people. I'm a black person that was born around my kind, okay? I was with my kind until I was moved away from my kind. So I can literally say white people were my teachers because they were. So literally. When I look at them and analyze them, and part of this analysis, it's like, well, you can't paint all white people with a swath brush. Okay. Who says I'm doing that? I'm saying I was taught by white people. So paint those white people with one brush. Well, they were all various teachers. Yes. Now, the same thing applies to black people. But yet, it looks like the blacks are starting to break for Trump. Like, no, the blacks are not. They're not. But that one big brush, well, I know that there's a lot. No. Then stop pretending. Stop acting. And the acting is over. That part is over. Like,
Right.
Because I deal with you a certain way because I was taught by you. I was taught by you, right? And that's the difference between me and the common black person that you are encountering, America. Because a lot of them weren't taught by you. They don't understand what's happening. So it is, like I said, my responsibility to now speak because I now know that I should. I have seen what you continue to do. It doesn't matter. You join our movements, you talk unity, and then the killing increases. Oh, we'll just take the protections away. We'll strip down the laws. We don't need to teach our history, even though we wouldn't have history here if it wasn't for y'all. Like, come on now. So if enough is enough, we can have the conversations. We will have the conversations. We'll keep doing this. But I don't have any qualms about what I'm saying. I'm not changing my thoughts or my words or my opinion. I don't have any soft words for people that really want to kill me. Muhammad Ali there's a clip of him talking, has to be maybe over 50 years ago. And he's sitting down with with a talk show journalist. And he's like, listen, I don't necessarily have a problem with all white people. Just like I don't have a problem with all rattlesnakes. But what am I supposed to do when I see a bunch of rattlesnakes coming at me? Oh, I should just hold out because there could be one that doesn't want to kill me? Point made. Simple point.
Right.
It's very simple. Like, you got to think forward, but you can't think if you're bombarded with things that don't make sense or conflation all day long. And that's just where we are. So my commitment on this show is to kind of help you get out of that, break out of that, think out of that. You live in this America, but you need to see this one as well.
Yes, because this one exists. This one is oppressive. This one is dangerous.
It is gross.
It's very dangerous. It's a very fashion show with no fashions.
It is indeed where we are.
Yeah. Alex, how can they get in touch with you?
Please don't.
You've got to stop saying that. You got to let the people get in touch.
I'll be back. For what? I'll be back.
Okay, well, you can get in touch with me by going to my website, TiffanyLanelle.com. It has all of my socials on there at the top of it. So have your pick, subscribe, follow, all of that. We will be back with more This Is America. We will also be back with our individual shows where we will talk that talk, walk that walk, and give you all of your news, information, and things through our different lens as well. This is America, and that's it for today because we don't have anything else. See you next time.
You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a